the Finance Committee is definitely crucial as an advisory committee for University Park. So what I'm going to do, without going extensively, I'm just going to put it out there that we have 3 people here, and we need to vote a chair in. The chair has to be Ms. Dilworth. The only thing is we're going to have a full. There are 1, 2, 3. There are 3. Okay. Yes, there are 3. We're ready. Okay, then what I will do is open the floor up for nominations for the chair of this committee. Do I hear somebody nominate somebody as chair for this committee? Let us not all speak at one time now.
I nominate Trustee McFadden.
She can't be.
Okay, so who are the,
It's Ms. Clay, is Mr. Seegers, and it's Mrs. Martin.
I nominate Mr. Seegers. This is Ms. Martin.
Okay, Mr. Seegers is on the floor. Do I hear others, or is any others, you guys?
I think that would be a good
Danny
idea.
Seegers.
Yes, Mr. Danny Seegers, are you accepting this nomination?
It was my understanding that I was an advisory role only.
Everybody is in an advisory role, but there has to be a chair. And this chair is in absence of our appointed chair, which is the treasurer. By ordinance, it has to be the treasurer, but he is ill, continue to be seriously ill. So we have to vote and a chair, intermediary chair, to chair these meetings because they got to go on. So you vote within the scope of yourself. But our chair, Mr. Jim Ellis, is ill. And so we have to vote an interim chair. That's the purpose of me.
I'm sorry, village manager.
Yes, ma'am.
This is my suggestion, because we have 2 new members on tonight, and there are other members that are on there. How about for tonight, if you can chair the meeting and give the other members an opportunity to decide if they want to chair, and we'll open nominations at the next meeting. So I would like to raise the motion.
Is that a general consensus of everybody here? Would you prefer to do that tonight?
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Sure, it's been a while since I sat on the chair of a committee, so I'm good for that.
so we are, hold on, this is Donna Dilworth. So we are chairing this meeting for what reason, Renita?
Well, in absence of the chair, which is the treasurer, we have to appoint a chair pro temp, or we have to elect a chair, a vice chair, which will serve in his absence. So at this point, because there are new members on the committee right now, and we have some other members who are actually older voting members who've been on the committee for a while. They're not here. So don't really want to put anyone on a spot, and to give everyone an opportunity for at the next meeting to think about it. So if there's a nomination on the floor, then they're able to accept, or they may make a recommendation for someone as well. So just want to give everybody the opportunity to do that. So at this point, I move to make a motion that we allow the village manager, in the absence of a chair, and our treasurer, to chair the meeting, the finance meeting tonight.
Just tonight. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Is that the general consensus?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
I won't take it to a vote. I just assuming that this is what's going to be. So I don't have an agenda, but it appears like on many agendas, I'm the first on the agenda. So just let me give a concept of what's happening financially this fiscal year. Just for the new members that came on board, you may or may not know, the village's fiscal year actually begins April 1 through, May 1 through April 30th. So April 30th, 2021, our fiscal year ended. Our fiscal year ended without an approval of the budget that was submitted to the board. In fact, either we couldn't get a majority for financial meetings and or the boards had decided not to approve these budgets. So we're in the process of going through the finance committee, having to review them and discussions for public sentiments. And I think that's one of the reasons why this meeting was open up to the public. I don't know if any of you or who exactly has the budget, but I did have a prior meeting tonight, so I canceled that in order to be a part of this meeting. I didn't get an opportunity to get the individuals, and I don't know if the other members on this committee have copies of the budget, but I'm going to try to summarize it as much in generalization as I can, just to let you know. Well, first of all, the village is still trying to recover from 2016, but it's been progressive and things are working out well as it relates to that. In fact, in 2016, we started out with a $4.9 million plus deficit in its budget. Okay, in other words, we had actually given an indication that we would not expend no more than over $6,400,000+, but we actually spent $11 million over $11.4 million. So it technically left a deficit of around $4.9 million. So we've been having to try to recover from that deficit. In other words, we were extending debt beyond the dollars we had in our coffers. And I mean, not just general funds, all the funds that the village has or had, we obligated those dollars beyond the anticipated dollars that were coming in. But how we've set up this budget, since I've been here, citizens, members of the finance committee have been asking for real numbers. So, result of that ask, we have incorporated our summary budget comparatively by inclusions of real numbers of prior budget period. Actual numbers that exist, and that's what we've been doing. And so, for example, I'm going to talk about the budget now. The budget that we're in now began April 1, 2021, and May 1, 2021, but ends April 30th, 2022. So we have gone May, June, July, August, almost 5 months in the budget operating without an approved budget. The first budget that was presented, I made it clear to the board that there will be no changes. I was going to present it exactly as it was when department head submitted it to me. Even though I met with each department head with finances and with our finance to actually discuss it. Those budget numbers were not changed. I wanted the board to see those numbers, and I made it clear that during the first presentation of the budget, that these were summaries of each departmental numbers that were submitted. Of course, they hit the ceiling. We knew, and they said there was no way we'd approve it, absolutely. But I wanted them to know exactly what had been submitted by each department. After that point, we started yet meeting with department. There was a process. They were told to cut their budgets accordingly. There were fat line items in each budget, even though they declared there were not, there were. So they were requested to cut their budgets accordingly. So they cut their budgets accordingly. Some cut them more than the others, but we didn't compare apples to apples because each department has their individual needs. And that's the way we met and discussed with each. Each department head had to justify those needs. And subsequently, what happened is we went to the budget that you have tonight. Some people didn't discuss their changes. They submitted some last minute changes in these budgets, but they were not all agreed upon. And so, but they submitted them, and we have gotten the budgets down at this point across the board based on union, based on provisions in our personnel policy. And when I say unions, I'm talking about local 700. I'm talking about fire department 3660, for union, the ASME, all three unions we took into consideration. Considering all three unions are currently still under negotiations, and they all have what you call Me Too clauses. In other words, they don't want to feel that they're asking less than what we may consider giving the other employees. So we have three unions and department heads, which are called regular full-time employee, non-union, and basically that's in management, okay? But anyway, just to give you that summary, for example, I'm going to start out with bottom lines, and we can go on and talk because I don't want to monopolize this meeting. I want you to give an opportunity to ask questions. And I came into the village September of 2019. When I came in, the budget had not been approved. So our budget for September 19 was actually 1920 budget. Okay, so we're going to look at budget 2020. Budget 2020 compared to budget 19. Budget 19, and remember now, budget 19 ended April 30, 2019. We had laid off approximately 17 employees, keep that in mind, and we were paying off suits against the village up wazoo. Nobody dropped anything. They settled. We were paying off many suits. So we were substantially way underwater. We had suits that exceeded $2 million in that year. We laid off employees, so that cut, but based on the suits, it went beyond. That was the first problem. Then you need to understand that we had bonds, obligated bonds, GO bonds, that the village had particularly been paid off. In particular, there were two major bonds. There was one major bond in 1989, and then there was another major bond in 1991. And those bonds, both were approximately $3 million. approximately $3 million. I don't have the exact in front of me, but they both were near $3 million for the purposes of this discussion. We had two bonds of $3 million. So my concern is to be able to spend more money. You know, even in your household, you try to get your debt down, pay off your bills, so you can better utilize the income and the flexibility of the income in your household. And that's exactly what we did. So that's the first thing. So we looked in 2020, that was one of the targets. So in 2020, what we did, we took our deficit from $4,965,000 down to a plus side, a plus SIDE of $317,000. $317,000. What did that mean? What did it mean? It meant that we were more observant of people that got comp time, were eligible for it, that it went through the processes and it was approved, that people couldn't just think they can get comp time because they wanted to go on the record. They had to do work that couldn't be done on normal working hours. What comp time is for. People had misdefined what the word meant. So then for some employees, they wanted to work substantial overtime when probably some of that work could have been done during a daily process. Started looking at overtime hours being those hours that were catastrophic and necessary to do whatever. So that included overtime hours from Public Works. We had to look at them. Overtime hours were paid when there were snowstorms, when they had to get out early in the morning to shovel snow, to spread salt, whatever the case may be. People couldn't arbitrarily work overtime because they wanted to work overtime. We had to start looking at seniority. And that was the purpose of the unions, that senior people, hourly people, got the first choice. And that had not always been the case. So there were some personnel issues we had to go through, and ultimately those kinds of things started to work out. And then the comp time, you put down comp time, don't put down 4 hours yesterday. You know, what did you do in those 4 hours yesterday? If you met 2 meetings that were mandatory, required, you didn't have anything to do with them, but it was beyond your time, it's acceptable. But if you completed writing your report Friday that was due Monday, it could have been done prior to Monday. So some discretion that went into a lot of this. There were some angry employees. There were some employees were felt good that they were being treated fairly, others, whatever. But I've been basically fair across the board with the department heads that are there now. Basically, they've been fair. We've been doing real good on this. Let me cross my fingers so far. So we need to look at that. I just want to mention that in 2020, as I said, the actual, now we did a budget now. There's a difference between budget and actual. We did a showing that, let me tell you, that we did a budget in 2020 saying that we're going to come in $317,000 under budget. But in reality, the actuals, what the prior finance committee and the citizens wanted, we actually came in, rather than 317,000, we came in 573,000. That's because we didn't have any idea that we would be paying as much overtime for police and fire. Why do we pay overtime for police and fire? It's in the absence of police and firemen. When they aren't available to do the shifts, we have to pay people overtime pay. And they aren't always at the bottom of the scale. Senior employees get priority. Shift employees get priorities in their shift based on seniority. So we had to pay that. We came in, rather than we're thinking we're going to be 317,000, and you can only do that. But you all have to remember budgets now. Budgets are just a guide for us to go by, because we're not magicians. We don't always get what we anticipate from the state. We don't always get what we anticipate from funding sources. We have to deal with the dollars we're dealt, and that's what these budgets have been about. So
I have a question.
yes,
So I understand, I'm looking at the budget and you're stating that the 2020 actuals, we came at 573. But when you compare 2020 actuals to 2019 actuals, the real estate taxes is not correct. So I know we received more than $2 million in 2019 for real estate taxes versus 2020.
okay, now listen, that's what everybody thinks those are actuals. We took those right from the dollars from the audit reports that we got dollars from Will County and the few dollars that came in from Cook County. And let me tell you something. You remember, the state did a program where it allowed people to prorate and pay their taxes. In other words, they wouldn't from the end of 2020 is when, if you remember, that's when COVID hit. The Pritzker filed a provision that he gave people the opportunity to apply for a hardship. So as a result, we may have, based on provisions of what people were to pay based on our share of taxes, meaning University Park, but what we actually received were two different things.
I understand for 2020, but 2019 is actuals. And so for actuals for 2019, we should have received more than $2 million in real estate taxes.
We're checking that back because based on our documents received, if you can't see my thing, but I have that question mark about that too, but we're trying to check with Will County. That's one of the issues I have too. But until we get it confirmed from Will County, we can't change anything.
But there's no way the village could function off of just receiving in the $2 million for 2019. So you're 2019 to 2020 actuals, and that's why you're saying that now we're down, we're only at 573. When really, we've never received only $2 million in real estate taxes. I'm just saying, there's no way that we're not going to receive at least.
Well, Ms. Dilworth, like I say, I got a question mark. The next meeting or whatever, I will definitely let you know. I'll let you know on that because this came directly from the audit report and from the information from Will County. So we'll let you know on this. We don't generate these figures. It's based on entry. It's based on entry and information we receive. But I got a question mark by it as well. So we're on the same page on that, and I'll reconfirm that. But I'm actually here to talk about 21 to 22 budget, but I was trying to bring you up to it. But if you look at 20, and this budget ended April 30th, 2019. I was not here. I came in September 2019. This is what I'm trying to get actuals, real numbers on, and we're trying to get that when you do. And you also, all of you all need to understand.
I'm sorry. This is Ms. Martin. Can I ask a question? Now,
Sure.
Was that actual for the entire fiscal year or was that for a quarter?
No, ma'am, fiscal year, entire.
It was the fiscal year. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Now, let me just mention something else. Citizens, and I would believe it too if I didn't know better, believe that we function only on real estate taxes. We do not. We do not. In fact, we are not the highest recipients of real estate taxes if you all, it sounds like this is a very intelligent crew, you know that the school district get substantially much more than we do. But the Village of University Park is expected to do triple what the few dollars we get versus the school district. So keep in mind, so that means that we definitely have to come up with additional sources. And I'm going to explain that in a minute. Let me tell you just what exactly is going on. So let's go to 2021. Okay, 20 is May 1, 20 through April 30th, 2021. That's when I actually have fulfilled a full academic, financial year in dealing with this budget. And I just want to tell you, in 2020, the actuals was $11,368,190. But I budgeted lean, follow me, these are actual. I budgeted $11,929,453. So the minute I can begin to get my hand on the numbers, I'm a paper person. I appreciate all of you all in these computers, but I'm a paper person. When we get monies, checks, deposits, whatever, we keep copies of this for our files. A lot of this goes into the system, but when it's time for the audit report, great, they want to see our systems, but they want to see the paperwork too. So have to show this. So let me show you, these are actual. If you notice, that's again, 2021. In 20, the actuals was only a difference of approximately 200, less than 200 some thousand. So that's budgeting. And the reason being is we set some policies in place that employees, department heads in particular, cannot obligate over $500. Obligate over $500 without getting written approval from me. So it's in the budget. Every bill that's paid, I go through, there's always a check and balance. The mayor, myself, clerk, myself, there's always a check and balance. It may take me 5-6 hours a half day to do 100 checks. They say I'm slow, whatever they want to call it. But what I do is I check to make sure every one of those bills match the invoice. And if it's over $5,000, I go back to see when it was approved. And if it were approved, I circle the department head and I sign off. That's the way I do the invoices, and I authorize that payment. But it's got to be the appropriate backup. That's one way of keeping intact. And another thing, employees, if they exceed their level, they got to come in, because the board got me at a limit per transaction. I'm on a limit per ordinance. So I have to adhere to my own job description. So I have a limit on that, and the department head says a fine, but we got the budget, I must say, was very, very good. And let me just tell you all something else. Contrary to what you believe, we paid off the 1989, approximately $3 million bond. We paid it off. We paid off the 1991, approximately $3 million. We paid off 2 bonds since I've been here, since the mayor has been here, since this administration has been here. 2 bonds have been paid off. So we're trying to get rid of our bills. We're trying to get rid of our bills. But anyway, let me go on. Let me continue to do this. Now, the 21-22 budget is what we're in now. The 21 budget was $14,222,989, whatever. But we're proposing the 22 for a reduction of under $13 million, which will leave us a surplus of approximately pretty close to 600,000. That's because we've reduced our debts. We have closed out 2 bonds, and now let me tell you what's happening. With some impact dollars we got from TIF 7, which was $1 million, everybody's complaining that we had to pay 7% for $1 million. I'd rather pay 7% for $1 million and pay it off as opposed to paying up to 12% from 1989, 90. If you do your math, 89 and 10, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, keep going. It's over 10 years. Over 10 years, we've had to pay interest on the 1989 bond. Now, we need the money now. The 7% was not that much compared to the industry, which is 12%, or hard lending 12.5%. So what we need to do, if you're in the market, you know these. If you're not in the market, you're gonna complain and you're gonna do whatever. But it's my job as village administrator to bring, village manager, mind you, is to bring this to the board, bring these budgets to the board, let them ask questions. And if I don't have an immediate answer, it's my responsibility to find the answers for them and bring them back and provide the sources. So this $1 million got us 4 brand new squad cars with all the state-of-the-art trucks, 150, because our streets are getting bad and we were tearing up the car because the cars were going over the pothole, tearing up our shocks and everything in it. So bam, the chief, myself, elevation. What about trucks? Got the trucks. That truck takes care of everything we need. It even prints out tickets. If a person get a ticket because of speeding, whatever, they can stay in the car, go back to their car, they code, print them a ticket, give it to them and say, have a nice day. They come over, they pay that ticket, the monies go into the village coffers according to the provision of that. But we're in the 22nd century, guys, with the equipment that's in these vehicles for the police vehicles. We got 4 new vehicles. We need more, but we have to start. We have to crawl before we walk. We hadn't got any new police vehicles in eons. They've always gotten used vehicles, but they had to pay used vehicles. We got a discount, the state discount for this. We paid cash for them, cash, no loan other than this part of this. So there's one loan that would have been loan, but it's part of this. Let me tell you. And we're going to get all of this clear. We got for the fire department, I tried to, with the board's observation, is to even the playing field. The fire department was able to get a brand new engine. And it had been over 10 years, going on 15, near 20 years when they've had a new vehicle. I'm telling you, we had a custom engine built. It has now been picked up. We're getting the balance of our, hold on for a second. Let me put this on silent, because otherwise I can't answer their questions. And sorry, it won't even let me go into sound. Okay. It won't even let me go to hush. It won't, will not even let me, I forget it. That's all right. I just want to, but so we were able to get them an awesome engine, and we're getting ready to open it up for the public to see the logo. We're going to have all of that. It is simply wonderful. That engine was guiding to help do what I'm going to tell you at the end of this report. But the next thing we were able to utilize some individual dollars to do the rehab of fire station number 2. They didn't come from general fund dollars. These were fund dollars that came from non-village funds per se. They came from outside. They came from permitting fees and the like. They didn't come from tax dollars. Please understand that. It didn't come from tax dollars. We took that money, went out for bid on all the subs. We're rehabbing fire station number 2, but they had to have someplace to stay. So we put them in a cold OSHA trailer that met all of OSHA requirements with sleeping, all of that. So we had to lease that trailer. They're over there in that trailer. But we're doing the revision of the steel roof. It needed insulation. It was full of all kind of mold. We had women and men stand in the same place in violation of OSHA. There were so many violations. We had doors that wouldn't open if it were an emergency because of the situation. We had the doors up and down, wouldn't open. I mean, all this hit me when I came in. We looked at priorities. Every priority is number 1. Just to let you know, we got new doors over there. We're in the process of totally rehabbing new roof, and there's a steel roof on that. Got mold remediation. Core is coming in, replacing all the windows. We're doing 2 bathrooms, male, female shower. We're meeting all of OSHA requirements. All these requirements, we are meeting them. That's that. Now, we have another issue, guys, and that issue with financing is we're trying to get in a position like other towns. Crestwood was making such a plus on the plus side that they started giving their citizens only on the villages, on the taxes they paid only now. We're not talking about any other taxes, only on real estate taxes if they were paid current. The village of Crestwood reimbursed their citizens 100%. There was a scale. There's a scale, and this board is going to determine it. We've already discussed that. We want to get in a position to give y'all some of your money back. And you do this by economic development and getting out of the quagmire the village is finding itself in. If we had to live on the village's taxes alone, we drown by now. And that's the reality of what's happening. Everybody believes that their taxes keep this village open. It helps. It helps. Believe me, it really helps. But it's not the give all, get all, solve all. Since I've been the village manager, since the mayors, I don't know about anybody else on the mayor board that I've been under 2 terms, we have been able, and it's a team, I always say we, regardless of them working me 12, 14 hours a day. They work too. They have these committees. You see Trustee McFadden give up their personal time to volunteer to chair these committees, the commitment to come in to know. So I'm saying to all of that to say, we have heightened our economic development base, the number of businesses that have been coming in here, and they just didn't come from osmosis. They came because we went to conferences, we passed out 500 cards, we run our mouth as though we have diarrhea of the mouth. But this year, we're going to some conferences, contrary to what I believe. That's the only way excuse me, people, excuse me. The only way people are gonna understand about this town, we have, it's almost done, a capital improvement plan that has finances. We're gonna give that a copy to the finance committee. It's a capital improvement plan, and the capital improvement plan have costs for all the categories. It didn't come before it was created. There were public meetings, there were public hearings, there were forms that were completed by citizens. There were drive-throughs. We did it with citizens, trustees. There were, we've done it on golf course, carts. We've driven through the community. We've targeted everybody we can to let them be in this process. And what we've done, we've created this document that is amazing based on what the citizens are saying, what the priority streets are saying. But the point is, when we first came in here, and just, I'm going to say, excuse me, when we first came in here, I was hit on Town Center. The mayor was hit on Town Center. Some of the existing trustees had already been hit on Town Center. So it was a yeoman's job for the finance committee. Everybody, how are we going to do this? We don't have any money to do this. As village manager, my name isn't Millie Jackson, but you can call me Millie Jackson Jr. if you like. But it was my responsibility, along with the directives of the mayor and the board of trustees. The mayor board, I'm not on mute. The mayor board of trustees, we had to come up with some ways. So creativity. That town center is the part of this community. And it reminded you of a bald-headed stepchild. Excuse me for saying that. A bald-headed stepchild without any care. So we had to give it some love. How do you do that? You had to look at what it would cost to build, to redo that. It was $1.2 million. It was $1.2 million. Yes, we could not afford $1.2 million. So we put our feelers out on the state level, the Minority Contractors, Inc., all the houses we thought of sending it out. We were successful. The guy that got the bid, and I want to keep the record straight, get the record straight. The guy that got the bid, don't know him from Adam. He submitted the bid, one of the state priority minority contractors, bidded it. The engineers gave their review of it. This man, and mind you, it was at the base of COVID, so there were a lot of contractors out of bid. I mean, needed work. They needed work. They did everything as per the outline in the contract. They submitted their bid. And all I kept saying is hallelujah, because what this man came in, $399,000 and some odd dollars. I don't remember, but it was under $400,000. He was awarded the bid. There were individuals that tried to do stop orders. I don't understand, but it didn't matter. They continued. They had the appropriate, we couldn't allow folk on. State came out, OSHA came out, unions came out. He was in compliance with everybody. He had all his insurances, his performance bonds, everything. To make a long story short, you see, you all shouldn't put me first on the agenda because I will tell you all the reality of what's going on. So we can start out this year clean and clear with this finance board. I don't want to keep anything hidden behind a curtain. This is the reality of what's going on. So we got that done. But I'm gonna tell you, when we got it done, it brought the community, started bringing the community back together. Everybody wanted to rent it, but we couldn't rent it. So they started wanting to come up, have this. But what it did, because of that, it started people soliciting space in the town center. Soliciting space. We had an open house this Sunday, which was phenomenal. We got an open house on the 19th, which is phenomenal. We have a business that has spent some hundreds of thousands of dollars inside. We had a water main break that put him in regression, but he's back on board. That break we're having fixed, but when it opens up, everybody's gonna ask, well, how did this happen? We have the dental office moving on expansion. We have if you drive around, it is so much going on up there, but as usual, it takes time. We didn't have a comprehensive sprinkler system. How can you put restaurant in locations without having a sprinkler system? So you did those kinds of things. We put in, the village had to pay for this. So we had to find money. So we got about all the village's sprinkler system almost done. We got a monitoring system. So we did those things that we couldn't even pass our own codes. How can you expect to enforce laws when we couldn't even pass our own codes? That's the reality. You have to tell the truth. We couldn't pass our own code. So between police, fire, code enforcement, I have to stay independent of that. I don't influence them. I have them to go over. They know what the codes are. They have to issue occupancy based on whatever. If they comply, they're issued. If they don't comply, do not issue occupancy notice. Some people have been very upset about that, but we had to do what we had to do. Merchant Plaza, more money. The monies are coming back. It's becoming what we call counter-cyclical. The monies that's coming in independent, we put it in an escrow account, Finance Committee. We put it in an escrow account. We're using some of that money, Finance Committee, as a match for the OSLAD grant we just submitted September 1. We got a $400,000 OSLAD grant we submitted for Regal Farm. The village had to pay $200,000 and OSLAD came up with $200,000. $400,000, and it can only be in parks. It'll only be in the park. That means that parking, we deal with the right of way, the ingress, egress, doing landscaping. We get extra points if we put certain kinds of points, plants out there that under the provisions of the state agricultural division, we get extra points. So we get higher on the list. We get extra points if we use 10% of our grants to hire what we call an apprenticeship program. We got big IBEW here in town, and we have never used them to provide for internships for the folks that live in University Park. We get plus higher upper scale. So what we're going to do with IBEW, that's half of a journeyman's wage. So if a journeyman gets $50 an hour and we use an apprentice, we only have to pay $25 an hour. Guys, finance committees. So we're thinking all about this. We're thinking about this. Now, the other, in 2019-20, we submitted a DCEO grant that was phenomenal. The director of that department had indicated that our grants were one of the top state grants. Top state grants. Oh, we were so happy. We were dancing around. We just knew we had it made. But then we heard some noise that said, click, click. They locked us. We were not eligible for any state funds. Why? Because we had not done audits. 15 audits had basically been completed almost, but it hadn't been filed. So we filed 15, we did 16, 17, 18, 19, less than 2 years. Less than 2 years. People are complaining. They don't know how staff is hopping. They complain about staff at Village Hall, that we have staff running over me. Oh, I beg to differ. Talk to the trustees that come in here and figure out what's going on. Know what's going on up in there. They work up in there. If you come to work, you're going to work. So they work up in there. I don't know where they get all these notions, but everybody got very clean job descriptions. They get 8 hours worth of work. They get 8 hours of pay. They're supposed to get an hour lunch. Our limit after 3 o'clock, you can't go to lunch. But do an hour, your hour's up, you got to be back in here. You're up, the next person in line. We follow those guidelines. I don't know where all of this information is coming from, but the reason why we're able to get to this budget level that we are is because we follow what the board has made me do. And that's to follow my job description. And that is to follow the guidelines you have in place. They have ordinances. It's my job to make sure they pass resolution. It is my job. And it's my job to make all those department heads. All the department heads fall under me. They don't fall under the mayor board. They fall under me. And it's my responsibility to make sure they do that. And I do. And I do. Some like what I do, some don't. But I'm not there to personality. Like I say, I may not like you, but I got to respect you and the office you hold. Who may not like me for whatever, because I never say anything negative about anybody. And I say anti, not any, but antibody, because people add 2 sentences. They add 2. They do what I used to call, because I'm a retired English professor as well, they do what they call run-on sentences. They add what they want to these. And I just want you all to understand that this is public sector employment, keeping dollars in control. Now, some people have called me cheap. It's all right. I don't mind. To me, cheap is good. I'm not cheap. There's a euphemism for the use of cheap. It's just being very cautious on the use, how you expending money. It's just monitoring how you expending money, because they always say 2 eyes are better than 1. Well, 4 eyes are horrific. It's when you're keeping it on you and I'm keeping it on you too. It's great. We're going to make a great team. And I have great teams. So let me just say all that to say this year, we're asking the mayor board and you all got this. Call me if you have some questions even. We're looking at, this year, we're proposing a budget for 12 million, little over $12 million. We're proposing that, a little over $12 million, okay? And this is general fund revenue, but we're looking for expenditures to be almost, it's over $12.5 million. Leave us again in, according to this budget, expenditures of $574,000. But I'm gonna tell you, that doesn't mean anything. Other dollars are coming from. Every time some money's become available. I don't know if you all watched the TV sitcom. That name of the sitcom was called Thinker. And it was a guy on it named Maynard G. Krebs. We didn't have a TV, but we went to the neighbors next door. And he was, the thinker was like that. And he never did work. Every time somebody would mention to him about work, he would say, work. You all remember that? I'm sure you do. You have to think back. But this is what this is. It's about work. I'm trying to prove a point. I'm trying to prove that those 17 people that were laid off in 2016 can come back on if we watch our pennies, we've hired a total of 4 new police officers, but we always have that issue with them leaving, going other people, places, make other money, to make more money. When they do, then we have to pay for overtime. Overtime is where those under dollars came in. Last year is approximately almost $1 million in overtime expenditures categorically. That's where our deficit come in. This is just the budget, but the bottom line is you want to make sure every department is covered. And when police officers or fire people are out there working, citizens complain, but they forget all about the budget when it comes time to services. But it takes money to pay them. So we have to keep that in mind. So what we're doing this year, we got a new police and fire commission board. We're going to be bringing on, we got a new list for the police department. We had to pay for testing. The new board as of recent is going to be hiring finance committees. They're going to be hiring police officers, which means they have to go through school. They have to do the background check, got to go through the training, all of that, dollars, cha-ching dollars. Then fingerprinting, all of that. And then they come on at that entry level and then we're paying. But until then, we still have to pay overtime, but we're trying to expedite that process. Keep that in mind. Now, fire department, the same. When they find a place where they can go and make more money, they go. And some people will be happy to come here because they see what University Park entry level is. There are quite a few towns that pay less, but there are quite a few towns that pay more. I thought that we can do a piece of legislation that can circumvent them taking our monies and run with it. So we're working on that, trying to do what we can do with that now to try to save some. So if they come in place, if we can do something legally, we can restrict what happens if they take our money and run home without staying here and giving us some service, okay?
I'm sorry, village
Oh, let me go.
manager.
I just want you all to know
We have
Hold on, I have,
2 hands that are raised.
and go ahead.
We have, my hand is raised and I can't see who the other person's hand is raised. But I have a question. Well, it's not a question, it's a request. Could
Okay.
you identify for us any new revenue streams that we will be getting hopefully in the next fiscal year, the upcoming fiscal year, or anything now up until the new fiscal year, additional revenue streams?
And sometimes that can change. It changes. I'll put you what we have applied for. I can't guarantee is a revenue stream until we get approval or notice to proceed. But I will tell you what we've applied for. I'll tell you dollars we have gathered, what is in our escrow, and I'll tell you, sure, I can do that. I can be as honest as possible. But I can't create anything that is not there. So I'll tell you what we have, what we hope for, what we've applied for. I'll do that.
Was that all, Vernita? Ms. Martin? What? Well, I
I'm
guess,
sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's my question for now. I went back on mute. Sometimes it's hard to get off mute. Let me take my hand down.
okay.
No.
I had a question. It's not a deal where I have several questions. Are we going to go through the budget? Because I have several questions that I have in each one of the different pages that we should go through. I understand that you gave us the update about the whole village, but I kind of wanted to go through the budget. And then I have a lot of different questions in regards to the budget.
Okay, you can ask.
Okay.
You can ask
Okay.
anything.
So-
But when it comes to specific integral personnel, you know.
It don't have to be, it's these are line items, so it's. all
Okay, all right,
budget, so it should
okay.
be, I'm
All
not
right.
saying it's personnel or
Okay.
anything, but it's
Okay.
just whatever's on the budget. So
Sure.
first off, we don't have any 2021 actual numbers. Why?
If you look at your budget, the 2021 actual number is the budget, the audits that has to be completed, and that's what we're doing right now.
That's the budget, but the actual should be available through bank.
Now, see, you're using demonstrative language. I'm telling you, whether you want to accept it or not, auditor is taking the information. We use ADP, we use all of these programs. What they are doing right now, they're compiling this stuff and they are giving us actuals. Now, this is the first time you all have actually gotten actuals. I'm trying to do what you want to do, but give us a minute. They're in that process as we speak. We meet with them monthly. Sometimes we meet with them every 2 weeks, but that's what they're doing now. We will provide.
I understand that they're doing that. But my question is, when we're usually comparing the budget, we're comparing 2022 budget to 2020, and we should be comparing the actuals to 2021. So we're comparing our numbers for 2 years, what happened 2 years ago versus what happened last year.
But
Right. Right?
Yeah, but I tell you, you can compare it in 2018.
You could use it as a guide, I agree. But when you're doing the next year's budget, we're comparing against last year's actuals.
Okay,
Let me
so here-
let me just explain something to you.
I'm sorry. I
have
have a
numbers.
question.
You have to have numbers, and that's what we're trying to get for you.
I have a question. We're still in a budget cycle right now. So we're still in 21 budget cycle, correct?
Yes, we haven't gotten 22 done yet.
Right.
No, right.
So 21, what we're looking for is, I mean, even if we don't have all, do we have any quarters? Actuals for quarters per
But wait a
quarter?
minute, 21 budget is based off of 2020, 2021. We're in 2021,
Right.
2022. So we should have actuals for 2020 to 2021.
Right, exactly.
And
We should.
We
We
should,
should.
and that's what I'm saying. That's what we should be
should.
comparing this 2021, 2022 budget to
Mhm.
actuals, and we don't have those actuals to compare.
Right, okay.
Especially like you stated, all the different things that occurred
Mhm.
with COVID and all these different things. We should be comparing our numbers to, like you stated, you wanted to give us actuals, but we don't have actuals for last year.
Right, but this is the first time you've actually gotten them. So give me a break for a minute and let us get these total figures. I'd rather give you accurate. I can give you, they do quarterly reports on expenditures per department. And I can provide those numbers for you.
That's what I was gonna ask. If there's any way that you can pull that data from the accounting system and
Okay.
give us the actuals based on our revenue and expenditures.
Okay. I could, for information purpose, I can definitely prepare. I can give that to you.
Okay, so I wanted to go through by page. I have different things through pages. I think I sent this over
Yes,
to some of the trustees.
yes, you did.
Okay, so
And it was good too.
okay, and for instance, on page 2, the things that I noticed was the utility taxes, the ComEd, NICOR. Shouldn't these be increased because of the new businesses that's here? Why are they so low for 2022?
Okay, now,
I'm asking, not should they, but I'm just asking, will we see an increase in those?
Commonwealth Edison has new programs in place. When they send us notification, and we've gotten additional incomes. That's how we've been able to survive. And I provided that for the last board. I gave summary of the increase of those dollars. And that's where some of those dollars came from, the increase of funds we received. Yes.
But it's lower than what it was in 2019. That's why I'm asking.
So which year are we looking at? Give me one specific and I'll.
So if we look at the utility tax with ComEd,
Okay.
for 2019 actuals, it say 453,000, and then
Right.
posing 420,000. Why is it decreasing when we have all these additional business that just came I would think that it would increase for the ComEd, for NICOR, like you stated, there has been an increase, but it doesn't reflect it in the budget.
Okay, well, if you look, the difference between, if you look at actuals of 2019, 453.77, and you look at the 2020, yeah, we have additional businesses coming in. But if you look at off of Drolley Road, we had them, but they're opening back up. Plants have closed. I don't know how they determine their kilowatts, but these are actual numbers. I don't create the numbers. These are actual dollar numbers we received from ComEd. These were not numbers we created. I can't answer that.
I'm referring to your budget, not the actuals. I'm talking about the 2022, the budget proposal.
These are actual numbers.
Okay.
These are actual numbers. That's what I'm trying to tell you. These are actual numbers. These were actually lifted off. We get annual reports, and then we have the region director come out and explain it all. To come out, they give them certain programs, whatever. These are actual numbers. We don't know necessarily why, and I can't answer that. You may, the next time our Southern representative, who is Ms. Bernita Martin, comes out, ask, because they have their own formula. We take actuals based on what we receive.
Manager E, but it's under the budget proposal. You just stated that you don't have the 2021 actuals to compare against. So
Okay,
now
you know what a budget proposal is, just like what you're saying.
I do.
We're anticipating an increase based on the number of new businesses.
But it's showing a decrease. That's what I'm saying. If you look at 19, it's showing a decrease from the various years, and it shows stagnant. It doesn't show any increase.
Okay, it shows 420. Well, look at 2021. It shows an increase. 2021, it was 370,000 that was budgeted, was 420,000 that was actual. So we can only go on what we think will come, which will be the same money we received in 2020 actual. We're expecting the same money in 2022 until we get the actuals from 2021, of which you don't have. You've been answering your own questions. Like, for example, explain this. Hold on for a second. I want you to follow me. Let's look on a ComEd utility taxes. The actual of 2020 was 420,000.
Okay.
But it's just what it is, a budget. It's not guaranteed. It's what you anticipate or as a guide.
And that's what I'm asking. Why aren't you anticipating it being more than 420,000 for 2022?
Because
the 2020.
Let me tell you something about that. When you deal, if you notice, that's our pattern down. You do this if we get more, that's great. But why would you fix your budget to get you a Cadillac when you know 2 years ago, you don't know what's going to happen? 2 years ago, you got you a wonderful Ford and you were able to survive. Why would you increase your budget to a Cadillac? Staff see that budget is increased. It is a guide. They're going to want to spend on that. We're trying to make the budget actuals. That's all I'm trying to say. And the only actual we have here.
And I understand. I understand, but the actuals, you're saying, why would you do with the whole Cadillac and all that type of stuff? We just stated that you anticipate we have Amazon here. We have other businesses that are new here, and you did not reflect that. I don't see that reflected in 2022's budget. So
no, you don't. No, you don't.
Can I ask a question?
Excuse me, this is Danny Seegers. Can I make a comment?
Yeah, Danny, go ahead.
I don't know who's asking about we should be budgeting on future dollars that we might get, but that's how we got in the debt to begin with years ago.
Thank you.
Spending money that we didn't have, planning on it, and it didn't show up. and we
Right.
built our budgets on it, and we ended up in a deficit. That's
Right.
just bad financial management.
It is.
No, when you do a budget, you project based off of what has came in. So
And that's what I did.
that's what you're saying, future revenue.
I-
And future
I'm
revenue
sorry.
is here. We have future revenue. So we can go off on that one, but let me go to my other question.
Okay, can I say this right quick, Ms. Dilworth?
Sure.
Here is the thing with that. You're speaking of new businesses. We can't anticipate, because if they have not been here a year, then how can we anticipate what we will get off them if we don't know what their usage is? So I'm assuming that the dollar amount is based on usage if we're talking about ComEd. So if we're getting taxes, utility taxes, then those taxes are based on what the usage of those businesses. You have to remember that we were in COVID in 2020 and 2021, we're still in COVID. So a lot of the businesses were closed. And so they probably were not generating a lot. We probably didn't generate as much revenue because they were not using the same amount of electricity. And again, to piggyback on what Mr. Seeger said, it is like suicide to overinflate your budget.
Yep.
So it's better to look at what we have and not anticipate businesses that we don't know. We can't determine trends because they have not been here long enough. So how can we anticipate that revenue when we have no data to put it against?
That's basically what
A budget's based off anticipation, but that goes to the point why we need 2021 actuals to compare it against. So that justifies the reason why we need that, to make sure that we are in line when you're doing a budget. A budget, you're not going to do exactly the same thing as last year. You always do some type of percentage of an increase based off of what comes in. So thank you.
Let me just say this.
That's based on years and trends. It's
Yeah.
based on trends. You don't do it in a year because things fluctuate in a year. When you're looking at a trend, you're looking at anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So it makes no sense for us to do it like that. And again, we anticipate, because here's the thing that we've seen, because I've been on this budget committee for years. And this is one of the things that I fight against all the time, is them overstating that budget. We say that we're going to bring in revenue, we're going to bring in dollars, and we don't. And the only thing we're bringing in is the taxes. What we need to do is move towards getting more sales taxes, getting more. And that's why I was asking Ms. Ernestine, the village manager, are there any additional revenues that we have identified coming into the village for this next fiscal year, so that when we are looking at our projections, we want to look at real numbers. The other thing is that I think, for the sake of time, we need to move on, and maybe at our next meeting, because I don't think all of us, because there are new people on the committee, they don't have the budget, so that we're all looking at the same thing. Could we agree, or could we move to motion, to move on the agenda? And I think you had a list. If we can ask the village manager to address those things that you had, and when she comes back to the meeting, if she could actually maybe have it for us in writing. And again, we all can have a clear budget. I'm asking that all the finance committee members get a copy of the budget, electronically, at least a week before our next meeting, so that we can be looking at the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will not always be able to attend these meetings. I'm just mentioning it to you all now. I may not always be able to attend, but if you can get in touch with me before, when they have, because your meetings are the same time every month, I will provide what I can for you to know as this committee. But I'm going to tell you, budgeting, as this budget committee is, you're diverse. But I too have been budgeting for a very long time. And it's been government budgeting So everybody has their method. And I believe when a system works, don't try to fix it. And I'm not going to over budget. You'll notice on the budget pattern that I create, I'm not going to over budget it. I'm not going to do that. We're not going to, which means the monies I get on the side, and I am a certified grants writer, contrary to popular belief. We get monies on the side, these grants, we do whatever out there, we're gonna get the money. That monies can only be used for what we're asking from, which may save categorically in other budgeted items, which means the lesser we spend in our regular general fund, our deficit is lessened. So I don't like to over project, and I don't see doing that. I appreciate the advisory committee in suggesting ways of budgeting, but over budgeting, that's not a method that I employ.
So this is Donna. Ms. Martin, I understand what you're saying, how everybody did not have a budget. On the agenda, it did state that we are going over budget discussions. So I thought that everybody would have got it because it is on the agenda or has made an effort to, or have read it or seen it or anything. I don't know, but it was somebody that had to send it to them. So since it was on the agenda, I was expecting for us to have this conversation. I wouldn't want it to go on to another couple of weeks and they're looking to try to get some type of finalization with the board.
Well,
right. So
if
if Manager Beck says that, okay, we can hold this and it won't be presented to the board to be passed, then okay, we'll talk about it the next time. But if not, I would like to go over these different things that I have questions that's on the budget.
I'm going to ask that you send those things to her in writing and she respond to them at our next meeting, because it is 8:22. This meeting started at 7 p.m. Unlike maybe some of you guys, when I just walked in the door and got on this meeting from work. I've been at work since 7 something this morning. So I'm just asking for the sake of our time, could we agree to have our village manager or our financial person answer your questions and we have it at the next meeting? And that's all I'm asking for the sake of time. Not to say not to address your questions, but time is getting away from us and time is of the essence. And that's all I'm requesting.
But that's a fair request and it's up to Village Manager Fulcrum if you are willing to do that. If that's something that you were gonna.
Now, wait a minute. I will address, but don't send me a dissertation and expect me to turn around immediately and provide it for you when I have a 1/3 secretary and wear several hats. So if you have something you want me to respond to, please get it to me. If I cannot, I'll address it accordingly. If I can, I will do it, but I will get back to you on it.
Will you be able to come back on the meeting? That's what Ms. Martin stated. Are you going to be able to come back on to the Finance Committee meeting, the next meeting, to go over these concerns or questions?
That's in October. Is in October what?
What is our meeting? I think it is what is this, the second?
Every third Wednesday.
The third Wednesday of the month.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you can't be at the meeting, village manager, we are requesting that you send a designee.
There's only one designee I can send, and she's obligated on Wednesdays because she would have been on this meeting too. But she's obligated on the Wednesday the same time as this, and she sent out notifications to everybody. Now, that next Wednesday, trustee, we're gonna be at a conference.
No, that's this month, not next month. October the 20th is the third Wednesday of next month.
Okay.
So we're going to September, not October.
No, that is the IML.
Right,
Okay, we'll talk about this when we get on.
okay. Yeah, so October 20th will be the third Wednesday of the month for next month's meeting.
Okay, well,
And these are just to put a note in, these are the same questions that I sent over a month ago.
Mhm.
This is not the first time that I've sent these questions or talked about them, but I have sent this way over a month ago to the trustees, to the mayor, to the village. And I received the response, so.
Trustee McFadden, as our trustee liaison,
Mhm.
could you ensure that we get those questions answered for our next meeting, as many as you can?
Okay, you want the questions answered and that
Yes.
Donna sent out, or do you want, make sure everybody get Donna questions? Which question are you asking?
You can, we would rather have Donna's questions after the village manager has had, and her staff has had the opportunity to address them.
Okay.
So that has given us basically a month to
Mhm.
get those questions answered for Ms.
Mhm.
Dilworth.
Okay,
Is that fair, Ms. Dilworth?
That's fair.
Thank you.
I'll do my best. I will do my best.
Thank you.
Hi, Danny Seegers again.
Mhm.
The budget that's on the website, is that the budget we're looking at? Because that's the one I downloaded. Hello?
I have to look to see which one. Does the budget say?
Yes.
2021-76 is the date on the PDF.
Yes.
There was a recent revision, though. These are constant. There was a recent revision. So I'll make sure you all get we'll make sure you get the updated one for the next meeting.
Right, and
Okay.
Trustee McFadden, could you also put that on the list to request to make sure that all the members of the finance committee have that budget, so we're all looking at the same data.
okay.
Trustee McFadden, I believe that you have the agenda. So
Yes.
what is the next item? I think the village manager has covered a lot of things we haven't really touched on things as far as the treasurer's report, because the treasurer's report is basically talking about our expenditures for the month. So I'm gonna ask that we table that, or I'm gonna motion that we table that agenda item for our next meeting, and also table the agenda item for the financial report for
Okay,
the next meeting.
okay.
So I move that we table those, and we need a second motion. I mean, a second for that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
We,
It's not really it's very general, so
yeah,
so just no motion was necessary. It's just the function of you doing.
well, because it's on the agenda and we're not gonna address it tonight, you have to entertain a motion to table it to the next meeting.
What? Okay, well, since it's the general consensus of the members that are present that we all do this, so we'll just summarize whoever is taking the minutes that will in fact do that. Because we didn't. Okay, so let us prepare for the next meeting, and for those individuals that didn't show, could whoever called them and asked them to try to be at the next meeting so we could in fact select a chair, move forward. Anybody have any?
I'll contact them.
Okay, any other questions? There being no further questions, and this is not an official meeting, and call me Chair Pro Temp, whatever, I officially meeting be closed in due form.
All right.
Good night, you all. Rest well.
Have a good night.
Good night,
Thank
sweetie.
you. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming out.
All right. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.